What's up, good people? It's Jay. Thanks for tuning in. I just want to show you a quick. This is just before the eclipse that happened. When the sun is supposed to be a gazillion, quadrillion miles away, lined up right behind the moon, or vice versa, whichever way it happened, and it just happened to even out. Say it with me, y'all. Even out that circle. Yeah, but yeah, I just wanted to share a video, but before I do that, I want to talk about the Bible and the missing books real quick. And no one has completely read the entire Bible. If they did not hear of these books or read about them, especially Apocrypha and Josephus. I explained enough about the Book of Enoch, but these books were removed out of the Bible. So when people are like, the Bible is confusing, they can't keep up with it, that's because these books are missing. They play a major part in who our Creator is and how the world came to be to this day, and how history is truly repeating itself. So I encourage you all to, if you're into the Bible, these books are a very good part of the Bible, and they need to be included into the Bible, especially from the Old Testament and the New Testament. The New Testament speaks about the things in Josephus, the book of Josephus, and how names disappear. How you're reading a book, okay, and the book is real good, and you get to a page and 15 people showed up. You don't know who these 15 people are. You say, where the hell do these people come from? They just show up and you just keep reading the end of the Bible. You just read names like, oh, okay, Harold the Great, okay, all right, Agrippa, okay, all right. I don't know where they came from. They're not in the Old Testament, but they're here now. These books explain who everyone is that's in the New Testament, but they removed it between the Old Testament and the New Testament. So no one has ever read the entire Bible if they did not read these books. But I just want to show this, share this video real quick. It's a lesson for flat earthers, That's a lot. This is yet another beginner's guide for seeking truth deep down inside the rabbit hole.
So where am I going with all of this? A place that I never would have thought I'd go in a million years, and all of this stuff that I was looking into, the deeper I went down that rabbit hole, I finally ran into the flat earth. And I know how ridiculous it sounds, because I thought it was the dumbest thing that I had ever seen, and I wouldn't even look at flat earth anything for a long time because it just seemed so ridiculous to me. One day I decided I would go ahead and watch a flat earth video. I thought it would be funny. I thought I would laugh. At the end of the video, I was not laughing. I couldn't believe what I was hearing, so immediately I started doing my own research. I went to NASA. I went to space.com. I started downloading pictures of the globe and pictures of Earth and examining them. And almost immediately I realized how inconsistent these pictures are and how fake they are. And they're not real. These are not real photographs. These are CGI. These are computer generated images. Okay? And it's very obvious when you start looking into it. Look at how different the sizes of the continents are from picture to picture. I mean, they can't even decide what size they want their continents to be. Take a look at this picture of the globe. It's pretty famous. Anybody can go download it. And if you take a close look at what's in the clouds. I mean, they spell it right out for you, and you can't make this stuff up. And it's not me photoshopping it. This is how it comes. Download it yourself. Also, look at this heat signature from the Earth. They say the Earth is facing the sun at a tilt, but the heat signature goes directly around the equator, right around the middle of the Earth. It actually pays no attention to the axial tilt, and that is what they tell you causes the seasons. The sun is actually farther away from the Earth during the summer months and closer in the winter months, but they tell you that the axial tilt is what causes the heat change. But here, that totally contradicts it. And if you look at this flat Earth picture, you can see that the heat signature is right in the middle, and that is exactly where the flat Earth model says the sun's path is. It circles above the Earth. I also started looking at all the moon landing photos and really scrutinizing them, and you can see, you know, even though a lot of it can be explained away, some of it just can't, like how close they are to the horizon of the moon. It just doesn't make sense. It should go far beyond where you see it going in the pictures. And look at the lander. The lander, I mean, they're supposed to take this thing out all the way to the moon and back, and it looks like it's got thin aluminum crinkled sheets all over it, and tape and curtain rods, and it looks very thrown together. And if you look at the moonlander foot, there is no dust in the moonlander foot. I mean, it has a 10,000 pound thrust engine, and it didn't disturb any of the dust on the moon. This is a picture that I put together of various elements from the moonlander and the moon landing, and you can take a look at the lander itself. Very cheap looking, very thrown together. It looks like it cannot withstand the going through a vacuum of space. It looks like it would just fall apart. You can see in the upper left, there's the blast crater that NASA says you can see from Earth, yet below the moonlander, there is absolutely zero disturbance from it actually landing on the moon. No dust has been disturbed at all. There's no dust in the landing pads. There is no sign of the engine firing, no blackening of the exhaust tube. And look at the flag. They put this flag that's supposed to be there after they leave the moon, but they put it right next to the lander, again with a 10,000 pound thrust engine. When they leave, the flag would blow over. It would disintegrate. It doesn't make any sense for them to put it there. It's so staged. Here's a close-up of the picture of the wheel of the lunar rover, and there is no track in front of it or behind it, like it was just gently placed on top of the dust of the moon. This picture of the astronaut with the Earth in the corner, you can see that the Earth looks pasted into the photo and the background looks cropped out. Here the astronauts are, they don't even have any helmets on, and it still looks like they're on the moon. You can see this other picture of Stanley Kubrick walking with a NASA astronaut, a NASA advisor, senior administrator from NASA. It's circumstantial evidence, but it's very suspicious because we all know that 2001: A Space Odyssey came out before the moon landings happened, so Stanley Kubrick had clearly already perfected his technique on filming space scenes. A NASA astronaut practicing in the pool, and then him below in space. It goes on. I found some pictures from the lunar orbiter, and I did some Photoshop forensics, and you can see clearly where the images have been edited. Look at this one of the Earth. It looks rather large coming over the limb of the moon, and you do a little Photoshop forensics and you see where things were cut and pasted, and even the digital artifacts that you get to show up when you adjust the levels in Photoshop, they don't match. I drew a line here. It shows you clearly that the lines that you connect from the digital signature of the photos don't even line up. They're not parallel. This is a picture that somebody was clever enough to put together, showing that the space between the Earth and the Moon can fit all these planets in between it, side by side, with room to spare even. And then the next thing you know, they show you a picture of Earth and its moon from Mars, and the proportions clearly don't line up, and it can't be explained away by optics. Now, I know all of that can be considered just circumstantial and it's not really enough to convince anybody, but let's do some thought experiments, okay? One day my son asked me, because he saw the moon in the sky during the daytime, how come if the moon is in space we can still see it? And I thought that was a great question. The moon is 239,000 miles away. The size of Tycho crater is 86 kilometers, or that's about equal to 53 miles across. Now, the distance of the moon from the Earth is 79 times the width of the United States. If you think about it, why do you think that you are able to see something as small as 53 miles across with your naked eye from 239,000 miles away? It really doesn't make sense. You shouldn't be able to see that. That's like looking at your friend from 6 miles away and being able to see them. Now, take a look at the space station. They say that it's in orbit 220 miles above the surface of the Earth. One thing to consider with the space station is that it's out in space and there are extreme temperatures out in space. When it is on the sun side of Earth, the temperatures get very, very hot. When it is on the night side of Earth, the temperatures get very, very cold. So you have a very extreme temperature change every 45 minutes on all the equipment. It's a very hostile environment. And if you've ever looked into the SR-71 Blackbird, that jet that they said flew at the edge of space, every time that thing came down for a landing, it was leaking like a sieve. Okay? And they have this space station that's been up there for years and years and years, and it's never blown a seal, it's never had a problem. It just keeps going on and on. Hot, cold, hot, cold, hot, cold, without any effect. The other thing to consider is the size of the space station. They say that it's roughly the size of a football field. Here is a comparison picture of the space station compared to the size of a passenger jet. Now, when you look at a passenger jet flying at cruising altitude, you see it every day. They are about 5 or 6 miles up in the air. Now, imagine if you put this object at 220 miles above the Earth's surface. That is 44 times as high as cruising altitude for a jet. And even with a telescope, I don't see how anybody would be able to see that. The formula to calculate the Earth's curvature is 8 inches per mile squared. So at some point, when you're looking at things off in the distance, they should drop below the Earth's curvature and they should begin to curve away from you. But this doesn't happen. You can look at these pictures of the Chicago skyline, and at 56 miles away, it should be 2,000 feet below the Earth's curvature, and you really shouldn't be able to see any of these buildings, but we can see it. People also like to say that they watch boats disappear over the horizon because of the Earth's curvature, but is that really what's happening? If you look in this video, you can see that the zoom brings these boats back into view, where when you're looking at it with your naked eye, it looked like there was nothing there, but then here come these boats back into view. So clearly, they're not disappearing because of the curvature, they're disappearing because of the limitations of the human eye and also perspective. At some point, we really need to be honest with ourselves about the observations that we make about the world we see with our eyes. Do things disappear into the vanishing point on a flat plane, just like we're taught in art class, or do they curve away from us on a ball? Do we ever really see the curvature? Have you seen the curvature? If you watch some high-altitude balloon footage, you'll see that if it doesn't have a fisheye lens to give the artificial impression of a curvature, there really isn't one. And this is the most irrefutable proof in my eyes that we do not live on a ball. If there is no curve, then there is no ball. Period. That's all there is to it. It doesn't matter if you're on the ground. It doesn't matter if you're on a mountaintop. It doesn't matter if you're 20 miles high in the sky. The horizon never curves away from you. It never gives the impression of being on a ball. It only gives the impression of being on a flat, level plane. Again, high-altitude balloon footage, 20 miles up in the sky. ISS is 220 miles up in the sky, so this times 10 or 11, when does this turn into this? When does it happen? Or does the horizon always remain at your eye level? Does it always look like it's just right there in front of you? There is no curvature, none. Let's talk about water. The natural physics of water is to find and maintain its level, or the natural physics of water is to stick to a spinning ball. How does water behave in the real world? What do you see? Now, I know a lot of people like to say, well, gravity keeps the water stuck to the ball. And okay, let's talk about gravity. Gravity is the invisible force that keeps everything stuck to our spinning ball. Now, according to Newton, every force should have an equal and opposite force, but what is the opposite force of gravity? Well, they tell you that the opposite force to gravity is the centrifugal force of the spinning ball. Our Earth is spinning on an axis, and just by the very nature of the shape of a ball that is spinning on its axis, the centrifugal force differs at each point on the ball, being greatest at the equator, 1,650 kilometers an hour, or 1,040 miles per hour, faster than the speed of sound. Then, as you move up or down in the latitudes on the ball, it gets slower and slower. Thus, the centrifugal force is weaker as you get towards the poles. Therefore, it is counteracting gravity less and less as you get towards the top or towards the bottom of the ball. So, why aren't the people at the North Pole being squashed like bugs? How are they even able to walk if this force of gravity is pulling them towards the Earth and there is no longer a centrifugal force counteracting gravity? How can they even pick themselves up off the ground? How about the constellations? The stars rotate around the North Star, Polaris. We see the same constellations throughout the year, just in different positions. Some people think that this proves that the Earth is a sphere, but I think it proves that the stars rotate over our head. Here is the Sun in space. Here is the Earth. The Earth orbits the Sun while spinning on its axis. At night, when we are not facing the Sun, we see the stars in the dark part of space. Why don't we see completely different constellations 3 months later when we are a quarter of the way through our orbit? Or how about 3 months after that when we are on the opposite side of the Sun? Every 3 months the constellations should be completely different, but they aren't. All the ancient cultures and all the ancient texts describe a flat, motionless Earth. So what happened? What changed? Who decided that the Earth was a ball?
Map of ancient Egypt. I've inserted 2 sticks or obelisks, one up here in Alexandria and one down here in Syene. Now, if at a certain moment each stick casts no shadow at all, that's perfectly easy to understand, provided the Earth is flat. If the shadow at Syene is at a certain length, and the shadow at Alexandria is the same length, that also makes sense on a flat Earth. But how could it be, Eratosthenes asked, that at the same instant there was no shadow at Syene and a very substantial shadow at Alexandria? The only answer was that the surface of the Earth is curved. Not only that, but the greater the curvature, the bigger the difference in the lengths of the shadows. The Sun is so far away that its rays are parallel when they reach the Earth.
Wait a minute, how did Eratosthenes know how far away the Sun was? to make this measurement, you have to assume the sun is extremely far away and that the sun's rays are parallel. But how do you look at things like this and get that the rays are parallel? Because it certainly doesn't look that way to me. If you look at the crepuscular rays of the sun coming through the clouds, you can see that it looks like the sun is right behind the clouds and the rays are emanating from the source of light, and those rays are not parallel. The most commonly accepted flat Earth model has the sun small and close and circling over the Earth. If you use a lamp and two objects of the same size, you can see how the same effect Eratosthenes saw can be created. Dr. Auguste Piccard was the first man to reach the stratosphere at a height of 75,459 feet, and this is how he described what he saw. This is before NASA and the Air Force. What about the moon? Does it really reflect sunlight like they say it does? Pay attention the next time you see a half moon in the sky opposite the sun. If the moon really reflects the sunlight, why isn't the moon full if it's facing the sun? Is there really a Hubble telescope in space, or is it just a telescope flying around in a jet? Are they telling the truth about what they show us, or are they laughing at us? If you pay attention, you will see their mistakes. NASA and their deception is the tool they use to keep us from knowing the true nature of who we are and where we live. They don't want us to know our true potential. They don't want us to know that we don't need them. They want us ignorant and docile, so we keep mining their gold. The globalists need a globe. Once you realize that they don't have one, you can take the power back.